This is Ben of Empire's Comics Vault at 1120 Fulton Avenue, Sacramento, California, and I am proud to welcome you to another all-new episode of Cracking the Vault, our weekly podcast in which our hosts, Tony, Ryan, Minnie, and Patty talk all things comics and pop culture from the comfy couches in the lounge right here at Empire's Comics Vault. Enjoy.
Greetings and salutations, everyone. This is Empire's Comics Presents Cracking the Vault. My name is Patrick Clark. I am going to be taking over the hosting reins for this particular episode, this very special October episode. And as it is October, and well, as we're filming this, it is currently October. Filming, recording, you know, like a general like industry jargon term.
Nice, okay.
Yeah.
All out.
Yeah.
On our videotape.
On our videotape, you can't like we are actually filming all of these on like you know how like they used to film things on like microfilm. We're filming all of these on microfilm. Yeah.
And microfiche.
And microfiche. Yeah, I don't
works.
know how we're doing microfiche.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
We're gonna have to change the outro. Available on iTunes, Stitcher, iBooks,
and microfiche.
And at your local library on microfiche.
Betamax.
On microfiche. Oh, Betamax.
Laserdisc.
Oh, what?
Wavelengths.
We've gone completely off the rails, and it's not even 5 minutes in. But it is October. It is the onset of autumn. It is the spoopy month of the year, and as a result, I think it's only appropriate that we talk about the villains, the villains of comic books. But before we get to that, because I'm a weirdo, I like to start with any comic book news that anybody may have heard
Even for that, you want to who are you with, Patty?
Sorry.
Who are you with, Patty?
Something about me that I should probably mention, that I think that if you're listening to this, you probably know who we are at this point. But if you don't, my name is Patrick Clark. To my left is
Ryan Miller.
And to my right is
Tony Asaro.
The venerable elder statesman hosts of this podcast. I'm including myself in the
I was going to say, you're the eldest statesman.
I am the eldest statesman.
Well, let's say, it is nice to introduce because then, people aren't waiting. Minnie is obviously not here with us tonight. So people aren't going to be waiting the whole time saying, is she just really quiet? Is she going to chime in?
That's true. That's very true. But anywho, that's who we are, and that's who's hosting this particular podcast.
We're talking about villains tonight.
And we're talking about villains, but before we got to villains, news. Does
That's
anybody
right.
have any news that they like to share?
Real
quick.
I do.
Okay, cool.
The new Into the Spider-Verse trailer dropped.
Oh, yes.
Yesterday.
Yeah.
This is, it's always that time warp kind of thing.
Very, very recently
it is
for
still
us.
Fresh.
It's
and,
probably been out for weeks.
I had some inkling of where the movie was going, and
Yeah.
I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And now I have even more of an inkling where it's going, and
yeah.
I really want to see it. It looks bonkers, like absolutely bonkers in all the right ways. And like the voice cast is like
it's fantastic.
Crazy.
It's stellar. Yeah.
Nicolas Cage, John Mulaney, like these are like random people to be finding in a Marvel cartoon.
But they're awesome. But it's not like it's very much like a Sony Pictures like joint at this point.
Yeah,
though.
that's true. Yeah,
Like,
and the animation style looks so unique.
Oh my god,
it looks
it's
amazing.
so good.
I'm very excited for this one.
I'm really excited too.
So.
I too am excited.
Yeah.
We were talking about it before we started recording, and I have not indulged in the new trailer because I just don't. I'm already sold. I don't.
Yeah.
I'm already probably going to be in the theater before the movie comes out and be a captive audience when they force another longer trailer on me, but. Which I don't really need because I don't want to spoil any of that.
He doesn't
for
care
myself.
for trailers these days.
Well, I mean,
folks.
I'll watch a trailer, but if I'm hooked, then I'm hooked, and if I'm intrigued to watch more, then maybe I'll. You know what I'm saying? I don't.
Sure.
I hear you.
Okay, whatever.
But I'm super duper sold for the movie. I'm excited. I love the animation style. I think it looks like a totally new thing, type of thing that we haven't seen from either Marvel or DC. Certainly not as a theatrical release. And I'm really excited for what might happen if it's successful. If it's as good as and as successful as I hope it might be. Then we could see a whole lot more of this kind of thing, which is really exciting to me. Because obviously if Disney gets that message, right, like if it does really well in a December where there's no Star Wars and there's no other Marvel movie, and there hasn't been another Marvel movie since, July, since Ant-Man from that point, right? So people are going to be real excited for Infinity War Part 2, for Captain Marvel that'll be coming out afterwards, and I think it could be kind of primed for a really big smash success, like record-breaking, for animation type thing. And so hopefully that leads to more Marvel animation, because I'm a huge animation nerd and I like it more than live action in general, pretty much for everything.
Well, animation is quite good.
Pretty much for all things.
It's quite good. There are certainly some DC animated films that are far better than what the DC Cinematic Universe puts out.
Yeah.
And there are a great many DC animated films that are much worse than what the DC...
They're also not great.
DC Cinematic Universe puts out.
Because of volume.
You take the good, you take the bad.
They make a lot of them.
You take them both.
Yeah.
And there you have...
No.
The facts of life. Those words resonated with me today as much as they did when I first heard them, however many years ago. Anywho, but so Spider-Man trailer is good. The Spider-Man movie Into the Spider-Verse looks good. And other related news, the Venom movie is terrible, apparently.
It looks pretty bad.
Early reviews by
word on the street is
it's got negative reviews at this point.
It's got real bad
reviews. The day before it comes out. Actually, as we're seeing this, many people probably are in the theater as we're recording this. Many people are in the Venom theater or in the theaters watching Venom for the first time.
And
it's crazy apparently.
I have seen several reviews that have said it is in the "it's so bad it's almost good" category.
Right.
Because I've heard, that is the ones that you kind of sometimes enjoy watching.
Sure. Oh,
yeah. Because I've seen a lot lately of movies that are really bad, and people are like, "This is bad," and not in a "it's so bad it's good" way. And I'm seeing that because of spoiler alert from reviews and trailer. I mean, it wasn't the trailer, but apparently there's a Venom and Tom Hardy makeout scene.
Yeah,
that sounds
where
fun.
Venom is. Not inhabiting Tom. It's inhabiting a woman.
It's in his girlfriend.
Yeah,
right. It's in his girlfriend, and she's she has to use the suit to come and save him or whatever.
Yeah.
I just I have not been interested in this from the beginning. I think it's a very strange concept from the very beginning to do a Venom movie without Spider-Man. And the way they've
retconned his origin, it makes
but why?
They're making
why?
They're trying to make him a standalone character. I don't think it's a particularly good idea.
Because they're we're going to lose Spider-Man, guys. We got to admit it,
Yeah.
But we don't know what's going to happen after, because Tom Holland's Disney Marvel thing, Tom Holland Spider-Man contract runs out after Spider-Man 2, which is going to be called Far From Home. So we don't know how that will be re-upped, or if it will, or what the rights are going to be like after that point. And the rights right now for the Spider-Man adjacent characters like Venom and Black Cat and Silver Sable they've been talking about, etc., we don't know all the details of how all that works. And it's been my inkling from the beginning of the announcement of the Venom stuff and the Black and Silver, Silver and Black, which has been canceled and revived and re-canceled and whatnot. My inkling, my leaning is that it's they're trying to set up a universe for when they get Spider-Man back. They're trying to set up this universe that he can just step into, and they'll have all these people introduced. That's how it feels. But it's also how do you do these characters and make them interesting without Spider-Man?
Right. It's also maybe they're planning in case he doesn't, if something happens and Disney sweetens it too much.
It doesn't mean it's going to be Tom Holland Spider-Man. So even if the rights go back to Sony, that might not mean that they get Tom Holland, because Disney has a real hold and on the MCU, and he's an MCU character. It might be yet another Spider-Man after we've just had another change of Spider-Man, and it would be which is a challenge. That's a challenge to pull off, right?
So who knows?
Whatever Spider-Verse, Jake.
whatever happens, it's legit going to be insane. But if you take anything away from this news segment, just know Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, good. Venom.
Right.
Probably not that good, but if you see it and you happen to enjoy it, just feel free.
I love Tom Hardy.
Feel free to call us out on it.
Yeah, feel free. I mean,
there's a lot of great people involved, like Riz Ahmed, Tom Hardy, Michelle Williams, Jenny Slate.
Jenny Slate's in that movie?
Oh yeah, for a minute.
Oh really?
Yeah,
okay. I like Jenny Slate.
I like Michelle Williams.
Marcel the Shell with shoes on.
But I probably will go see it. I will probably be the only one of the podcast crew that goes to see it. I will give you my review next week.
We can do a micro review.
Who knows? It probably won't be much more than what I've just said now. The Venom movie, not that good.
Well, we don't know.
Sincerely,
in some cases, in some scenes are fun to watch, and a lot of other scenes are not.
This is the prediction of the review.
This is the prediction of the review, and in all likelihood,
some will not be good.
It's going to be the review.
What I'm going to say, what I want to say before we move on from that is that I think it's really not great move and not a great omen that Tom Hardy's promotion for the film included an interview in which he was said, "My 40 minutes My favorite 40 minutes of the movie were cut.
Yeah,
40 minutes.
Yeah.
My favorite 40 minutes were cut.
We've all heard that.
Well, not in this podcast. We haven't.
Well,
I just think that's one of those things where it's like that's kind of like when that Fantastic Four, the Fan Four Stick director, when Josh Trank came out before the movie came out and was like, "Oh, Fox. I'm sorry. Fox destroyed my movie. I made a beautiful thing, and they destroyed it." And he said that before the film came out.
Speaking of sort of villainous entities and/or people,
indeed,
we're nice transition.
Well,
I thought we could have just done it with Venom itself, but
I mean, that's
just not a good omen. That's
kind of what I was.
I hear you.
Anywho, so villains. Our favorite villains for various reasons. In some ways, this is inspired by the fact that I didn't get to talk about the Reverse Flash, who was writ rather large in the Flash history during my Flash episode.
Right.
But that's just
which was a great episode.
It was a fun episode. I like doing it a lot. But and so that got us talking about.
Yeah, it went by too fast. You weren't able to.
Hey. Zing, zing, zing.
Very
but
good.
so
Very good.
we were that got us talking about our like favorite villains of like the various like comic book universes and ephemera, and so we decided to just do a straight villains episode. I think, have we done a villains episode before? I want to say we have not.
Nope, not that I can think of.
Just a good old scenery chewing.
Not that I can think
of.
Yeah,
mustache
twirling, tying like folks to railroad tracks and stuff.
Give me the deed to the farm.
Proper villain nonsense.
I mean, it's October.
Capturing cities in bottles.
It felt appropriate.
It did.
Nice.
It certainly did. Like the Disney villains have taken over Disneyland, so why shouldn't the comic book villains follow suit for
take over the discussion on the
vault.
podcast?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways to approach this.
How do you want to divvy it up? Well, I mean, I'm a shoot from the hip type of guy, so I just like favorite villains. Like if there's a particular villain that you really want to talk about for any reason whatsoever, maybe you like them because
straight up faves.
Straight up faves. Like I know there was some discussion. Like, do you guys have any like particular criteria you'd like to add, or just like different things you'd like to talk about?
Maybe ways in. Maybe we can add some.
Yeah, we can spin as we go.
All right, favorite villains then.
We can pivot as we go.
We can pivot.
Tony,
I've got a good one.
Go for it.
Now I've talked
straight off the gate.
I have talked about them on the show before, somewhat recently, I think. But Loki is a favorite villain.
Loki's a really good villain.
I almost wore my Loki shirt tonight. I'm instead wearing my J.M. Miles Explain the X-Men Magneto Made Some Valid Points shirt, which is a favorite.
That's a fave. You've worn that a lot.
I think I only have two villainous shirts. The other one is Loki. I super duper love Loki. I think that in his classic form, like the Silver Age, Bronze Age, very mustache twirly, like pretty straight villainous form.
Like the old Jack Kirby days. He's legit a big Marvel Comics villain
going way back,
like Kang the Conqueror, friggin' like Red Skull.
He's definitely an arch villain for sure, and which will. I'm kind of throwing that out there too because I know you want to talk about some arch villains, which you've already mentioned. But I like that version of him. But then when Loki really cemented his hold on my heart was a combination of the Tom Hiddleston version from the films, which I love.
But it's fantastic.
The post Straczynski Loki, where it was Kid Loki, and you got Kieran Gillen Loki,
like the Gillen
Journey into Mystery,
stuff,
and then in Young Avengers, the Gillen McKelvey Young Avengers as well, and both of those runs, all that Gillen stuff is some of my favorite Thor comics and Marvel comics, and I dare say his Young Avengers with McKelvey is one of my favorite YA comics and whatnot. And that was some great Loki, and it made me go oh, you're way more than a villain, which is something that Hiddleston also kind of brought a bit, especially as the movies progressed. Give and go.
Sure. But I was going to say the concept of Loki being not quite so terribly villainous has sort of been introduced slowly over a long period of time. It definitely exploded over the Kieran Gillen post Straczynski stuff because it was very much about rebirth, and the character's rebirth as a new being, like a guy who was Loki but is now somebody else, but is also
he's
still Loki.
Fated to be Loki, and he doesn't want to be villainous.
So he wants to try and do something different.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's really good.
And then of course ever since then, like you kind of just said, ever since then they've various writers in the Marvel universe have latched on to different aspects of Loki and done whatever they want with him. So he was great. Like you got Agent of Asgard. Or,
so good.
Vote
for Loki. That was
and you've got like a lot of great Loki and Squirrel Girl, like a substantial amount of really good Loki and Squirrel Girl, which is its own totally a fun thing. That's kind of like I kind of hear him in Hiddleston's voice now. And, So anyway, yeah, I think he's an interesting villain because he has an interesting backstory. He's of course a classical mythological figure going back thousands and thousands of years. But like the idea that he's actually from this other race, but he was adopted into the the Asgardian royal family, and so he's got this he was never treated like the number one son like Thor was, and all this sort of this thing that he's got some legitimate gripes, and also as much as he was a very destroy the world, take over everything kind of guy in the Silver and Bronze Age. I like that in most forms of Loki, both in myth and in the modern era, he's a mischievous trickster.
He's just the guy up to stuff. He's not trying to conquer the world or anything. Right. He's just doing stuff.
So sometimes, depending on the writer, sometimes he is kind of a big monstrous type villain, but more often than not, he's just
in Mark Waid's most recent run of the Avengers, he was very much mustache twirly, the I'm going to end the world type villain. Yeah.
But then in Jason Aaron's Thor, he was a more reluctant villain. He was more he's always going to be out for himself. Mm-hmm. Loki's always looking out for Loki, and Loki's always looking out for Loki. He always wants to be the star of everything. He wants to be the center of attention all the time and that kind of thing. And he wants to look like a hero. And I don't know. I think I just really love Loki. I love Loki. What do you guys feel about Loki before we go to somebody else?
I love Loki too. Yeah.
I'm a big Loki fan.
Yeah.
It is a little funny because I actually was just talking with someone recently who was a big Marvel fan, a friend of mine, and I realized we had never talked about Thor Ragnarok, movie-wise.
He's so good in Ragnarok.
And he was like, I couldn't watch it. I couldn't finish it. And
why?
He's been into straight up Norse mythology recently.
Oh, so
all this I was so steeped in it, and it was almost oh, that's not how it goes. That's not, hell is not like it. So he kind of was like, I might be able to revisit it now, a year later, but he was reading Neil Gaiman's Norse mythology and some other stuff. And he's like, I couldn't take the break from it. So that's the thing is I'm a big fan of Loki in various incarnations. I'm a big fan of Norse mythology. Mm-hmm. I like, movie Loki, and I like comic Loki. I mean, there's and that's kind of one of the things about Loki. I like Sandman Loki. Loki is a pretty significant figure,
great character in Sandman.
Sandman, and I think that we're talking about villains, and sure, that is a role he plays, but there's that whole idea of the trickster.
Yeah, he can be well. He does whatever he wants.
One thing that I was kind of not wrestling with, but thinking a lot about in preparation for tonight was the idea of we have this concept of a villain who's the good guys and bad guys. When you're a kid, you play, I'm going to be the good guy, you be the bad guy, but it's so malleable a lot of the time.
Yeah, he's more complex than that. Yeah, he's not a straight villain.
He changes. Right. He's changeable. That's
which is
I like his nature.
I like that. I like that
for sure.
So I love Loki a lot too. My favorite Loki story is probably one of the first Loki stories I read, and it's one where he teams up with Spider-Man to help save his daughter. One of his daughters from this entity that he crossed once upon a time and has now been released and is looking for revenge against Loki. So it possesses his daughter, and he's like, "Hey, Spider-Man, she lives in New York. You're a New York fellow. I need your help." And Spider-Man's like, "What? You're Loki. You're trying to take over the world." And Loki's like, "I do that a lot, but today I'm just a concerned father looking for his kid." Spider-Man's like, "Well, I get that." So they go off on this adventure, and they have this fun magic-y adventure, and they're eating hot dogs on roofs and stuff, and it's cute.
But Loki has a pattern of doing that. He kind of latches onto younger heroes, I feel like. One of my favorite Loki stories is Ms. Marvel.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
When he's with her in Jersey City. And
at this point, Spider-Man was 35 and married.
Oh, okay. Well, fair enough. But yeah, I mean, okay, whatever. Anyway, Ms. Marvel.
but to my point, though.
He becomes kind of friends with Kamala Khan. He's doing something, and then he eventually, and he puts these magical protectors around her school that actually come help her later on, in stories. And then and Squirrel Girl, he becomes friends with Squirrel Girl.
Yeah, big time,
comes to her birthday party. He's open my present first. It is awesome, and you can tell it's something kind of semi-terrible.
Sure. She makes her a spacesuit, makes her a magical spacesuit and everything.
Yeah, he's
all the Cat Thor stuff, and he's delightful in that book. But everything in that book is delightful. So of course.
But I just Squirrel Girl, Kamala Khan.
Yeah.
Ms. Marvel, and I guess 35-year-old Spider-Man. But he has a habit of being I'm going to take over the world. Maybe like people he doesn't like,
but there's
like as a
specific
group,
like persons
but individuals
that he enjoys,
he like connects with and is like, hey, I like you.
Hey, you're a fun guy.
I can strongly relate to that.
But
on every
Tony
level,
is like, in this case, I am Loki.
people are pretty awful.
So Ryan, you've waxed philosophical about, you've waxed like positive about Loki. Is there another villain that you'd like to like
wait.
praise upon?
I want to mention comic trivia that in the Marvel Universe, it's a thing that happens a lot, and I'm sure it'll happen again, is Thor killing Loki. Like, that's happened a lot of times.
It's happened a lot of times, but like they're gods, they die a lot.
Yeah, but like several times.
Been more than a few like Thor storylines that involved all the gods dying and then coming back.
I know at least once, if not several times, that Thor has become unworthy in Odin's eye or whatever, and like gone through some change, and where it ended up becoming like another person or whatever because he killed Loki, and Odin was like the one in the late '80s, when I first started reading Thor, and that's when we got Eric Masterson. Isn't that was his name?
I remember.
Who was not great. He's not a great Thor. Yeah. But when that happened, it was because Thor killed Loki again. Can't really say he didn't deserve it, but at the same time, like, Odin's mad because Thor killed Loki, so he becomes unworthy, so we get a new Thor. Like that, yeah, exactly.
Oh, and speaking of Thor, since we're talking about Loki, what was the Jane Foster, which comic was it where we get all the Lokis? I mean, he just appeared he appears to her, and he's like, "There's Kid Loki, there's Old Loki, there's Young Loki, there's Cat Loki."
Loki.
I didn't intend for this podcast to become the All Loki.
I'm sorry,
he's great.
It just happened.
Okay,
yeah.
I picked a good one. I mean,
you did, sure you did.
Okay, I'll say a couple that we're not going to talk at length about,
because
there are a couple. I thought I'll do two shorter ones.
Okay.
One because it's really off the wall, and when you say favorite villain, I mean, there's certain ones where I'm like,
okay, like when I say like favorite villain, I mean like villain that like you don't like hate the most, like because there is like the difference between like a good villain as like a good villain and a good villain is like a good villain,
right?
So notice the change.
I do, yeah. But I do.
But so like I'm talking about villains that you're like, oh, you're a fun guy. I mean, sure you might like try and like take over the world every once in a while, but you're still like super cool.
So then the one that definitely fits in that category for me is Granny Goodness.
Oh yeah,
oh my god,
she's real weird.
She's so like just fantastically over the top, like, so melodramatic, like so evil. Like she is the mustache. You know, she probably waxes her mustache.
She legit has a mustache.
To get rid of it, but she twirls her. You know.
She would twirl her mustache if she had one.
You know, and just love the idea that it's such a bizarre concept of this, like, you know, the orphanage on Apocalypse that she runs, that she gives everyone like these ironic kind of Dickensian nicknames. That's why we've got Scott Free and, you know, Vermin Wunderbar, like all these just terrible names of these people. And, you know, and the way she just declares show your love for Granny. Yeah. Like, go out and kill them all.
Yeah.
It's just, she's such a fantastic bad guy. And I saw someone recently posting a picture online I think it was on Twitter with Kathy Bates, and it was like, if she's not Granny Goodness
my god, she is like the
version of Mr. Miracle. I'm gonna like Oscar Isaacs is gonna be Mr. Miracle.
Who was the
Kathy
person?
Bates is gonna be Granny Goodness.
Who was the person that voiced Granny Goodness?
It was it's an older actor. Was it Ed Asner?
I know.
Yeah, it was somebody like that.
I guess it might have been. Like, yeah.
I would not.
It was someone like
he was Cosgrove on Freakazoid.
Here, I'll look it up.
His animation.
But
continue.
But Granny Goodness is just an off the wall.
So good. And she's like, for as weird and as cool as she is, I feel like she's a character that doesn't get a lot of like attention because like she's in like Darkseid's like Shadow, and a lot of like Darkseid's minions sort of like they're playing
Ed Asner. Very nice.
That's fun. But yeah, so I find it kind of like sad. I find it kind of sad that sometimes a lot of like Darkseid's minions like are very sort of like far in like Darkseid's Shadow.
Yeah. Right. Well, they have the problem of being in Darkseid's Shadow as well as being really one note.
Yes.
You know, there's not a lot of I mean, like
not a lot of.
So I feel like I'm also going to dance around this tonight because I don't want to make it like kind of what we did with Loki. But you know, Joker. I don't think really anyone beats Joker in terms of
pure villainousness.
But also in terms of that, like there are a lot of aspects to him. You know, and there's like the mystery of the origin. You know, there's a lot of stuff.
He's a multifaceted.
We can talk about it later if we feel like it.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just the obvious answer, like in a lot of cases. But you know, Granny Goodness, there's not that complexity there, and that's the thing. She is the scenery chewing. Like this is what I do, and get 'em boys.
She's
you know,
so
kind
dramatic.
kind of she's like Mama Fratelli kind of.
Yeah.
Oh, very much so. Yeah.
Boys, go get him, bring him back.
But usually with like a big smile on her face. Like she does her evil so joyously.
Yeah.
Like with such a
but with a scowl.
Yeah,
too,
yeah.
You know, I mean, she loves, and that's the thing. She just loves what she does.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
And
she really loves her work.
And and the thing is that a lot of Darkseid's minions have that one note. They're like, this guy's based on a German, like Austrian dictator kind of. This, you know, I mean, even all the like Furies. You know, it's like. This one lashes people. This one's
super crazy.
This one's she's mad. You know, so they all kind of have this one, like it's almost like
one defining character.
It's not even an archetype, but it's like even broader than an archetype. But it's like this one's crazy. So, but I love it for that. I mean, when you get that Jack Kirby.
But that Jack Kirby, like, who was writing New Gods? Was he?
He was writing it. Yeah.
Oh, he was. Yeah, it was a Jack Kirby.
So that sort of like quintessential like Jack Kirby sort of like, you know, like bellowing and boasting.
It is all at the top of your lungs.
Oh my god!
Like it's just
like if there's not an exclamation point at the end of every sentence, you're doing something wrong.
Bombastic is the word. And Granny Goodness is like one of the most bombastic elements of an incredibly bombastic comic by an incredibly bombastic writer and artist.
Yes.
So.
At his
most bombastic.
Well, it was
bombastic.
I don't know if it was at his most bombastic, but it was at his. It was like in that special period for Kirby where he had just finished his like long '60s stint with Marvel, and he was fed up with how he was being treated. And he went to DC, and they were like, "Yeah, we'll let you write it too."
It's like you can do whatever you want,
and we'll give you full credit on everything. And he was like, "Yes." So he just opened the throttle. Like it was already mostly open, but I mean, he really like poured his passion hard into it, and that's why that first New Gods stuff is it is fantastic, but it's also really special in his career.
It's
super duper dense.
I do like you were talking about. It is like he had the exclamation point shaker over it, and then the lid fell off.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh well.
Yep. I guess like everyone's shouting. That's just how
all the time.
That's how they talk on like New Genesis and Apocalypse. That's just everyone shouts.
It's not even that. It's Oberon, like all the people on Earth are everyone. I feel like everyone's breathless.
Yeah.
You know, like constantly, because they just have all shouted so much stuff.
Oh, sure.
She is so sadistic. She's evil.
That's what makes her.
She's great. She's really remarkable. She's a remarkable character.
And it's wrapped up in that
she's
kind of like big grandma.
Yeah.
Like she looks soft. You know, she looks like she's going to give you a hug, and she smells like warm cookies. And
come to Granny,
children. And then you know she also looks like she's going to stove your head in with like a frying pan.
Because she will,
or an axe has done that,
or an axe,
or that
axe is too mundane.
Or that mace, that weird like Jack Kirby looking mace that she carries around.
Yeah. So that was my pick.
So Loki and Granny Goodness, that's good. How do you I feel like we should talk about your Flash.
Yeah, Reverse Flash.
Yeah, okay. Like Reverse Flash, not like my favorite villain.
It's called that because he's so slow, right?
That's the turtle.
I know.
He can only move backwards. He just moves backwards everywhere.
So, but no, my favorite villain. I think I've talked about this before. Is Lex Luthor because because he could be so good and he could be so good and there are occasionally glimpses into like moments where he has done like a lot of good and saves the world and also whatever. But I should talk about the Flash villains because I made a big deal out of it, and so I'm going to do that. So there have been many people that sort of like can bear the name of like Reverse Flash, even though they're not technically called the Reverse Flash. They can all sort of be collectively lumped into the category of Reverse Flash villains, which is like a speedster who goes against the Flash for one reason or another. Like most of them hate him, and
that's enough.
Yeah, that's really enough. Most of them hate him.
You Flash,
I'll get you. Then I'll get you, Flash, and your kid sidekick too. But yeah, most of them hate him. Some of them hate him for like different, more personal reasons. Like one of them hates him just because he's like a colossal douche. And that's Eobard Thawne. That's the Reverse Flash. That's the first Reverse Flash. I can't remember. I had copious notes about like the Reverse Flashes during the Flash episode, but I don't have any of them with me. He was called something else. Like when he like first debuted, and like back in the '60s, he was called like I don't know, like Scarlet Swift or something like that. But he's just known as the Reverse Flash now because, like originally It was because originally how he got his powers was he found like an old suit of Barry's that had like some of Barry's old like speed mojo on it, and using like using like future science technology. This is real. Using like future science technology, he figures out a way to like enhance the Speed Force mojo.
Does he hold it up under the moon?
Yeah,
he does. A window.
He does a bunch of like
lightning.
He does a bunch of weird like super science like stuff to it because it's like in the future or whatever.
Comics.
Yeah, and comics. Yes. But so he uses super science like to enhance Barry's mojo, so he can wear the suit and use the Flash's powers. Barry gets stranded in his time and finds out that this guy is up to no good and stops him. And Eobard Thawne's like, "I swear vengeance against you, Flash!" And so that's Eobard Thawne for a little while. He's just like a crazy super science like scientist who found one of the Flash's suits and just decided to be a villain because that's just
he doesn't want the Flash on his lawn anymore.
He doesn't want the Flash on his lawn anymore. I mean, I don't know why I portrayed him as like an old man, but he always seemed like just a really like crotchety old man.
He was crotchety, even if he wasn't old. He was crotchety
on the inside.
He gets like a bit of an upgrade,
crotchety on the inside. Tony, I could see you wearing a shirt that says that.
Oh man. I'm not sure I want to own up to crotchety yet.
I've been crotchety on the inside for quite some time. But anywho, like he gets like Eobard Thawne gets kind of an upgrade like later on. Like he's a guy in the far future who's obsessed with the Flash and decides he wants so badly to emulate the Flash. He actually recreates the same experiment that gave the Flash his powers and decides to become the Flash in the 31st century. Only problem is, or the 25th century, because that's the Legion of Superheroes.
Right.
Anyway, only problem is there's not a lot of crime in the 25th century, so he creates crime to stop it as the Flash.
One of those guys.
One of those fellows. And Barry, again, gets stuck back in time for reasons and stops him. He figures out that Thawne is up to no good and stops him. And Thawne's just like, "I'll get you. I was loved as a superhero, and now I'm swearing eternal vengeance against you." And Barry's like, "Whatevs. I'm not going to... this is certainly not going to come back to haunt me." It does. Often. Often. And in various sadistic ways. Like, Thawne goes back and, like, kills his family.
Oh, man.
Well, he...
Heads up.
I'm sorry, that reaction was...
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man, not his family.
Oh, well, it's just that just like Thawne is very much like a proponent of the Chicago way, you know, like Flash takes away his chance to be a hero, and so Thawne's just like, "I'm gonna take away your family, your childhood," as a matter of fact.
The scale of retribution is...
He really just, he retaliates. He retaliates.
Yeah.
He's an escalating retaliator. He really doesn't know the meaning of the word appropriate response. But that's Eobard Thawne. He's a dick. So, yeah.
So he and Zoom, who we haven't talked about yet.
Zoom is different. Zoom is different.
But they're like Barry's art. I mean, we already talked about the Rogues Gallery at length at the Flash episode.
Yeah, but they're like Barry's like arch
nemesis.
Yeah.
This is a specific. I mean, we're talking about villains. This is like a specific brand of villain. Is the arch nemesis, the arch rival, right?
That's a good point. Yeah.
Or is it arch nemesis? Is that redundant? Is it just nemesis?
No, it's just
you have a nemesis, and your arch nemesis is like above them all.
Right.
So like Eobard Thawne, like Reverse Flash, was Barry's arch villain. Wally's arch villain is a guy named Hunter Zolomon, who was an FBI agent who called the wrong play or whatever and got like shot in the knee. He was an adventurer until he got shot in the knee. Anyway, and so
little Skyrim for everybody. There.
little really dated Skyrim humor for everybody.
Yeah, but they just remastered it. So it's coming back.
So after getting shot in the knee, he moves to Central City to become like a metahuman profiler, because that's what he used to do for the FBI, and becomes great friends with Wally West, whom everybody knows is the Flash at this point, and during a battle with Gorilla Grodd. Hunter Zolomon is paralyzed, like from the waist down. Dang. And that's a real bad hit. That's a real bad hit for a guy who's suffered a lot of like loss in his life. And so he's imploring like Wally to go back and like fix it for him. It's like, you can fix everything. You can go back to the day where I got shot in the knee and make it so I didn't get shot in the knee. And then none of this will ever happen. And none of this will ever happen. Wally's like, I could certainly do that. I'm not going to do that because there's a bunch of there's a lot of stuff to do with this time travel that you're not like, you don't understand, like, and you can't really understand. And Hunter Zolomon's like, take that. I don't like that answer because you and your predecessor used to bip and bop around the time stream all you want. It's like we did do a lot of that, but I'm still not going to do this for you
because it went poorly.
It went poorly. It went poorly every single time. That's like, and we just barely fixed it and barely prevented the time stream from like imploding on itself.
It's called the butterfly effect. Look it up on Wikipedia.
But Hunter's like that, so he breaks into the Flash Museum and he tries to start the Cosmic Treadmill, which is what the Flashes used to use to travel through time before they could just like do it. Right. And the Cosmic Treadmill explodes and he gains powers.
Man,
he becomes like unstuck. He becomes like unstuck from time, and as a result, he's able to move. At like superhuman speeds, like at speeds the Flash can't even like can't even like catch because he's not moving. He's like moving
way above.
He's moving in time.
Right.
He's accelerating from second to second, or he's decelerating from second to second. The Flash can't catch him.
Right.
And so it's a whole thing. But yeah, so those are the two that are sort of grouped into the realm of the Reverse Flash. There's also Daniel West, who comes up later during the Rebirth universe, but I'm not going to really.
So you're saying that Zoom is Wally West arch nemesis?
Zoom is Wally West.
Was that from the
Reverse
90s?
Flash. That was from the early 2000s. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so it was like Jeff Johns.
Yeah, it was. Zoom is a straight like Jeff Johns creation, and both the Reverse Flashes have like an enduring enmity of the Flash. Like Thawne wants to like utterly destroy the Flash and become like the Flash. He doesn't want to kill the Flash. Well, he doesn't want to kill the Flash, but he wants to kill the Flash and then be the Flash.
Right.
But Zoom, it wants to drive Wally to be a better hero. Right. It's like because it's only through like great pain and loss can you temper yourself and become a better hero.
Right.
And they're both really crazy, and they both do really like effed up stuff to both the Flashes. Like Zoom takes away Barry's children. I mean Wally's children.
Wow.
Like he
with Linda.
Yeah, with Linda Park. He causes it. He causes so much like trauma to her that she like loses the children.
That's messed up.
It's really sad. Yeah. And Thawne, like I said, kills Wally's mother and kills Barry's mother and frames. I hate their names sound so similar. And frames Barry's father for the murder. And he also kills Iris. He also like straight up just like kills Iris.
Which we see in the Flash TV show.
Yeah. Yeah. He also straight up like kills Iris, so Barry's result kills him.
So Reverse Flash is a lot older a character.
Yeah, he's like if Barry, I want to say, is like in his 30s, like Eobard Thawne is like in his like.
No, I mean 40s. Like he was created a long time ago.
Oh sure.
Like he's an older. He's been around longer.
He's been around.
Yeah. Okay.
Like he's been a
he's an old like.
He's been like a perennial Flash villain for like ever.
Silver Age.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Cool.
So he's really cool.
So why do you like? Why are these like interesting characters to you? Like, what is it? Is it their motivations? Because you just talked about their motivations, which I do think is interesting.
It's their motivations, and it's a lot like sort of like it's one of the reasons why I like the Flash so much. It's like no matter like what happens to these guys, like Barry's killed Thawne like multiple times in multiple ways. He's sort of like the guy that he's a lot like the Joker in some respects, except like he just uses like time travel, like like
he doesn't have a Lazarus pit.
Yeah, he uses like time travel, like trickery to like get around. It's like, oh, that was a guy from another timeline.
That was
like,
a dupe.
That was a dupe. That was a time dupe.
Yep.
Or whatever. But
time clone.
And sometimes it's just like retcons, like 0 Hour brought everybody back that was dead or whatever. But who knows? Right. And so yeah, he's just like a guy who no matter like what you do to him, you can kill his like ancestors to prevent him from being born. You can like snap his neck. You can like take away his Speed Force powers and then shoot him in the face. Like he's always gonna find a way to come back. I don't know how, but he does. And yeah, he's sort of like, and I kind of like that about him. And I also kind of like how his increasing retaliation against the Flash is just like, it grows more and more like ridiculously sadistic. Like, it's like he doesn't, it's just overkill at this point. Like there's gotta be an easier way to get at this guy than like, just going back in time so many times to like kill members of his family. It's
totally obsessed.
He's just real obsessed with like the Flash, and he's going about it in a real like weird way. Yeah. Like the whole like Flashpoint thing could technically, like the Flashpoint and leading into New 52 could technically be blamed on like Thawne, because he goes back in time because he kills Barry's mom.
Right.
And so
he goes back in time to kill Barry's mom.
He goes back in time to kill Barry's mom, and Barry decides he wants like the happy childhood he would have had with both his parents.
Right.
So he goes back in time to stop Zoom,
to
stop Thawne from killing his mother, and that creates the Flashpoint, and that creates New 52, and so on and so forth.
And the last 7 years of DC Comics.
Yeah. So yeah. It's just, they're fun. And Zoom is just like, he's just crazy. He's just like when you first see him, like he's so messed up as a result of like the cosmic turtle being blown up that he's like barely comprehensible. Like he's just gotten these powers and he doesn't quite know how to use them, but he knows he wants to use them for like evil. So he's like doing evil, but he doesn't really quite comprehend what he's doing, except he kind of does.
Because he's
like,
just lost it.
He's just lost it. He's like when you first see Zoom, he's just a man who has completely and utterly just like lost it. Like he is a man who was at his breaking point, broke, and then this is what happened after. And that's just kind of interesting to me. It's like he's just a man perpetually like sort of like living the worst day of his life. Yeah.
And he's unstuck in time, which probably is a weird way to kind of
Billy Pilgrim.
It's a weird way to experience the world. Yeah.
Do you have any feelings about Zoom or Reverse Flash Run?
I don't.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
As somebody, I will say this: I haven't read a whole ton of Flash comics, but I read some. Patty, you lent me some, and they were good. I read some of that Jeff Johns stuff.
Great.
He hadn't become Zoom yet.
No,
he was still a detective guy.
He was still like Wally's pal. Hunter.
Yeah. And but you could tell like the foreshadowing was really strong. You could totally tell that he was going to be like something horrible was going to happen.
He's going to be.
But I do watch the show, and so both of those characters have been on in various incarnations on the show.
Yeah.
And in the first season, at least, it was what's his face, actor. Yeah, but it was
Harrison Wells.
Harrison Wells was like his alter or whatever for the season.
Yeah.
So the actor
that was a great season.
it was pretty good. Yeah. Like the actor really played it up.
Oh,
like it was super maniacal and like a real mustache twirler. But he didn't have a mustache, but like it was pretty great. Yeah. And I enjoyed it. And obviously it was a strong enough first season, in total that I'm still watching it all these several years down the line. But well, okay. So I'm glad that you got to finally talk about them. Like,
yeah, me too.
I do have a question. Have you pretty much said everything you want to say about like Zoom and Reverse?
I have, yeah.
I have a question spanning out of that.
Go for it.
Okay, I want to make a point of order first. That if you go back and listen to our relatively recent Ramen Bowl AMA episode, we talked about favorite, and we're not going to repeat that conversation here, but I want to make it because we're talking about villains. We talked about favorite villains of ours that we would like to see be good guys, like with the Reformation treatment. Right. I brought up Poison Ivy. You talked about Lex Luthor, Patty, and Ryan wrote in an answer. He said the Corinthian from Sandman, which we were all just like, "Oh my god,
that's so weird."
Wouldn't that be an awesome character?
Oh,
so
weird.
Yeah, it would be a weird guy,
like mouth eye guy.
Mouth eye guy.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, we remember.
A nightmare, like a good nightmare.
So you can go back and listen to us expound on that just a few episodes ago. Really, it was like our summer 2018 AMA Ramen Bowl spectacular. And but the question I wanted to say is to spin out of this is favorite arch rivals. And Patty, you've already kind of talked about.
I'm fairly certain we just talked about.
Well, I didn't bring up Loki necessarily as a favorite
as an arch rival to Thor.
Yes. Okay. I was thinking just like kind of, and then so since we've already talked about yours, like Ryan and I, like maybe can you think of one? Ryan?
Yeah, man.
I mean, I kind of already said Joker.
Yeah,
I mean, but I feel like that's like the most cliche one, and I saw you kind of
go. Well, then let me put it this way to put a focus on it. What is it about Joker that makes, in your opinion, him the best arch rival?
I think it's because there's something I am particularly drawn to, like predictably unpredictable bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like I like the ones that are like really driven, but like also have this kind of just complete unpredictability to them. Because there's a lot, I mean, and this, I'm talking kind of in terms of a writer and someone who loves stories. Because, one of the things that is the worst for me, I don't know if I've mentioned this on the podcast before, but when I watched Wonder Woman, the movie, did I talk about this?
Oh, yeah.
Have I talked about this?
I don't know if you have on the show.
Bring it up again.
When they introduced, spoiler alert, do we have to say spoiler alert?
Well,
no.
Spoiler alert.
No.
Earmuffs if you haven't seen
Wonder Woman. When they introduced the character who, in the twist, is revealed to be the actual bad guy, Mars. Ares. Did I say Mars?
Yeah.
Ares.
One of those.
When he came onto the screen, I leaned over to my wife and said, "That's the bad guy."
When you first see him in like Britain Parliament,
and she was like, "Why?" And I said, "Because this is the point in the story. I would introduce the character that would be the secret bad guy."
Yes.
And that was the only reason for it. It was like the physical mechanics of the storytelling that made me think he's the bad guy.
Yeah.
Like this is when and how you would introduce him.
Like you could see the gears and whatnot.
Yeah, of the story itself. Yeah. So I mean, it's kind of sometimes no fun being a writer, in that regard. But there was also a friend of mine went and saw The Sixth Sense when it was in theaters.
Oh, and did she say she called it?
No, he did not. I leaned over to him when Bruce Willis was shot and said, You know what would be cool is if there was a movie where the character died at the beginning and didn't know it, and the whole movie they were dead. And he's like, that would be cool. And as we're watching the movie, increasingly we're like, oh, that's this movie. And it was not fun. So I didn't say like I saw the twist coming. I painted a hypothetical. Wouldn't it be cool if there was a movie with this twist? And it did happen to be that movie.
That's pretty good.
So anyway,
oh man, you had like $1 million idea.
I know.
Like, while we were watching the film.
So anyway, I just really like Joker and Moriarty, and specifically the BBC Sherlock Moriarty. I just love that character, and I love like Heath Ledger's Joker in the movie. I love certain incarnations of Joker in the comics over others. Like I'm not a big fan of his like super like crazy.
Like cutting his own face off and wearing it.
Well, I mean, I don't mean like that. I mean like the super like kind of over the top. You're like
like these like the Cesar Romero.
Except it has its own charm too.
It does. Because he's very much like he wasn't. I like how the Joker has evolved over time. Yeah. Like because he didn't start out as like super crazy kill guy. He was just like a guy in clown makeup doing crime.
He was pretty bad from the
beginning.
But
he was a gangster.
Yeah, like he was just a guy in a clown makeup doing crime, and he did kill a lot of folks, but he wasn't like like it was always like in towards like an end. He was stealing a thing, or he was like trying to do a thing.
But he wasn't afraid to kill people.
Oh no,
I feel like the stakes got ratcheted up with him in the like Bronze. It was like a late 70s, kind of thing, early 80s.
So anyway, I feel like in terms of arch rivalness, I just feel like it's the whole Jungian like shadow thing. Like he is Batman's shadow, actually, Batman could be his shadow. Since, that sort of thing. But I really like a really well paired. We're two sides of the same coin hero villain thing, and that's what I think like Sherlock and Moriarty. It's like if like we are the same person. If I made your choices, I could be you. If you made my choices, you could be me. Like we have the same kind of wavelength. We operate on the same channel. We kind of have the same outlook on humanity. You're choosing to help it. I'm choosing to like kind of entropy, embrace that side of it. And I feel like Batman and Joker are the same way. Like he's like, you're so dark, you need to lighten up. Like, but he's got the like kind of. They're both chaotic.
Oh yeah.
I mean, you might want to say Batman is. I mean,
Joker wears
lawful because he won't. He has a code of ethics, but
I would very much call him chaotic good.
And or no, he's not. No, he's not an anarchist. He's not chaotic good. He's neutral good. He just doesn't care about the law if he can get justice without having to go, with going around the law.
But he has. But I wouldn't call anyone.
He's not chaotic because Batman believes in a functioning society. Like he wants that. That's what he's working for. He's working for a safe. He wants to make Gotham City not newsworthy. Like he wants to make Gotham City like a safe, normal.
Oh, that's his goals. But he does do chaos. I mean, like his whole thing is based on like preying on the fears. Right. And that's the thing. Like his whole thing is of the villains. Yeah. So that's the do you twist it just a little bit and you're preying on the fears of
no. And it's interesting because like
the Joker, people. Yeah.
The Joker wears. He wears a suit, so to speak, of frivolity, or he's like, I'm a happy guy. I'm just here. I'm your friend. I'm here to just have everybody's gonna have a party. I'm the Joker. But then, of course, he's actually out to kill people.
Knife behind my back.
Whereas Batman's like, I am darkness. But at his heart and his actions are the opposite of that. Are to make a good. So they are they're both pulling on a facade that is opposite of their intention.
They're like a perfect yin yang. You've got Batman of this like black swoosh with a little white core, and the Joker is the other way around.
Yeah.
He's like this white smear of paint with this like dark heart. So it's like I just think I really like the duality of like it's almost like the idea, and it's been explored a lot of ways in a lot of even like fringe comics and independent stuff.
Even like art, there's like pinups and stuff that explore this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. But like the whole idea of that, like that they are the same. Yeah. And I like that idea.
They're
I like
inverse of each other.
The inverse, yeah. Like I said, like the Jungian kind of like the shadow archetype,
kind of like
and
the
even
Flash and Reverse Flash.
Kind of like Zach Galifianakis Joker and says, in the Lego movie, is like this the very "you complete me" moment there,
right? So, and I think that also, I mean, there's not a lot of villain rivalries that have the history that they do.
That's true.
They go way back.
They're kind of like the proto
Totally.
hero and arch-villain.
And it's interesting to go back and watch The Man Who Laughs, the silent film, which does not have anything to do with the Joker other than he inspired the Joker.
Right.
But like he is not a villain in that movie. He's a set upon, misunderstood guy who, you know, basically people come after because he has like a forbidden lover kind of thing. But
and a weird looking face.
Real weird looking face. But it's a good movie, and I watched it last October actually, I think.
Great.
And it was actually quite good.
Fantastic.
With the Joker, sorry, you have to complete your thoughts.
I was going to say the other thing I was going to say about that is it's a problematic comic, but in what comes out of it, the whole idea of one bad day.
Yeah,
you know,
the killing joke.
The killing joke. I really
one bad day.
appreciate that as well, because it's the whole idea of, well, what happens if you have one bad day? You know, Joker kind of says, all it takes is one bad day, and you will shed your civility and become like you will break your own rules, you will break down, and that's all it takes. And it kind of, I think, one ignores the fact that, you know, Batman pretty much had his one bad day when he was a kid. Like he's been through it already.
Like I've had my one bad day.
Yeah, he's
my entire life has been my one
life,
bad day.
He's like the first Reverse Flash.
Yeah.
But of course, the Joker is proven wrong in that comic.
Exactly, but I mean that. But that's his idea as well. It's like it's the same kind of thing. It's that opposite. Like Batman had his one bad day and became someone to save people.
Yeah.
Joker, you know, kind of alludes to that he had his one bad day and decided, like, it pulled back the facade of like the universe, and he's like, everything's meaningless, life is brutal and cold, and I'm just gonna, you know, embrace that and kind of go for it.
And he gives Gordon the one bad day in the comic, and Gordon comes out of it unchanged. He's still Commissioner Gordon, who wants law and order and believes in the systems. So he is disproven twice. And you could even say tangentially a third time when Barbara becomes Oracle and like transcends the wound that she gets in that comic.
Right.
I mean, he's disproven over and over again, which I think the message has to be that that's not what made Joker a villain. That he was always going to be a villain. Right. He was trying to come up with a rationalization for himself why he
and that's the thing. Like again, it's the polar opposite of like kind of like unwilling to see that about himself and unwilling to see that about other people. It's the exact opposite of Batman. Like it just I love that duality. I like duality.
The duality of man.
And there's not much you can get. I mean, it would, you know, who's Superman's arch nemesis? Lex Luthor. They're not opposites.
No.
You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Like I just really like the fact that Batman and Joker are such incredible opposites and yet so incredibly similar.
A word. Well, then to wrap Joker talk, like who's your favorite Joker?
Heath Ledger. I mean,
he's pretty good.
That movie I felt was really, really, really well done. Yeah, and I feel like it kind of got marred just a little bit by what came after and his passing. But I just thought he captured so much of that anarchy of the Joker, like the kind of controlled chaos or like the chaotic control,
the directed chaos.
But like I really enjoyed the movie, and then it came to the scene where he's like walking away from the hospital and starts blowing up, and he like starts like messing with the control, and then like all these major explosions start, and I was like, this is really, really good. Like it's so good. It's so like his whole performance was good. So I feel like that's my favorite Joker. When you ask who's your favorite Joker, I was wondering if that's what you meant, like Cesar Romero. It was maybe a close second.
Who didn't even want to shave his mustache?
Yeah, I know. That's the
best part. He's like, I'm Cesar frickin' Romero. I'm not going to shave my mustache for television. Are you kidding me?
And then
painted over
Mark Hamill's probably in Cheers, when they introduced the actors, and they had Ted Danson and Kirstie Alley.
And later Cheers. Okay,
well, and so she was like supposed to be top billing like him, but neither one wanted to not be top billing, I guess. So they put one of their names on the top and one on the bottom, but it was also one was on the right and one was on the left. So if you read top to bottom, one came first, but if you read left to right, one came first. Right. And I kind of feel like that situation with Heath Ledger and Mark Hamill is, you know, because they're different, but
they're different.
Mark Hamill is
so good.
So good.
Yeah. Mine's definitely Mark Hamill. There's no beating around the bush. I've said it a million times on the podcast. I would tattoo it on my chest if that's what the world requires of me. He is by far my definitive Joker, and I always try to read him read the Joker in the Mark Hamill voice. Although he's done several different Joker voices at this point.
Yes.
Patty, who's your favorite?
Probably. I have to think about who's my favorite like Joker.
It's not Mark Hamill.
I mean, it's probably Mark Hamill. I'm gonna be honest. It's either Mark Hamill or Heath Ledger. It's one of those two.
You can do what I did.
Yeah.
They're on the same screen.
Yeah.
Read left to right, read top to bottom.
And in comics, I also really liked him in Dark Knight Returns. I'm just going to say it.
Sure.
Frank Miller is a weirdo, but
He's real weird.
He wrote a really good Batman story.
So...
Yeah.
I mean, dark, obviously, but really good.
Yeah.
And that's, again, like, kind of gets to the heart of it.
Yeah.
Like, I know you. I know who you are. I know you, and I'm gonna...
But yeah,
I mean, in comics,
he's
I have
great.
to
he could be talked about for just like forever.
Yeah, so we have to move on. But I mean, in comics, I do want to shout to our recent Drunk History episode because that's like when I think of comics Joker, I think that's my favorite of that era, the late 70s, early 80s era. Like the Bronze Age Joker, the long face. Yeah. He's very like the homicidal clown. He's involved as a character up to, at that point. He's more dangerous than he used to be.
But there's still some like vestiges of like his old like sort of like I'm throwing shattering teeth at you.
Yeah, right. Somewhere it's like it's very Mark Hamill Joker.
Yeah,
even though Mark Hamill Joker wouldn't come for another 10 or 12 years or whatever, but like that is kind of how I feel about Mark Hamill's Joker is that it reminds me of the comics version from the like 70s and late 80s.
So I know
early 80s.
You said we should move on.
Yeah, we should.
Any early thoughts on Joaquin Phoenix Joker?
No, we're not even.
Good Lord. I am not going to see that movie.
No.
All right.
Tony, who's your arch villain?
We got to talk about Magneto because we're in the shirt and he's my favorite.
True.
And we haven't done like a big X-Men episode other than our X-Men Christmas, like where we actually like acted out the Reader's Theater X-Men, but which was fun. But I want to talk about Magneto for a second.
Eric Lensha.
Magneto, who is the master of magnets.
Yeah.
But I'm certain we're supposed to say Magneto. Eric, he's fascinating to me. He's my favorite arch because he and Charles are very much like, they feel connected to me. They feel like two sides of the same coin very much to me. They're old friends. Eric's got a very tragic and totally relatable backstory where you're just like, holy smokes, like this guy.
You've been through a lot.
Wow.
You had one bad day.
Oh boy. Like, he had a whole lot of bad days in those concentration camps in Germany when his whole family was gassed and whatnot. And he's got a horrible, tragic backstory.
Horrible, tragic backstory.
And because directly out of that, because of that, he understands hate and intolerance and the evil of man and what we will do to those who we consider other, and xenophobia and where the worst possible outcome of that. And so that's why he's like, Charles, they will never accept us. We will always be the other. They will always hate us. There is no chance for peace. So therefore, mutants, that's what I'm thinking. I mean, you have to have some. I'm assuming you have some familiarity with who Magneto is.
Yeah.
In some way or other.
I'm fairly certain we both. It's not like I'm talking about the Reverse Flash.
No, I know, right? So he, that's his stance. Is like, hey, listen, he's like, ideally, I would like to not kill people, but
sometimes you gotta.
The humans are going to come after us, and they're always going to keep coming after us, and there's no chance for peace. So we have to be stronger than them, and we've got to take the front foot. And that's Magneto as he's written in my favorite Magneto, which is kind of like that. So
it's almost like gentleman assassin. I mean, like that kind of idea of being like, I hate to do this. I'm sorry,
he's like,
but it's necessary.
I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
And you see it in his actions many, many, many times for giant chunks of X-Men history where he creates like a haven several different times. He creates like a haven for mutants where he's like, I'm gonna protect you here. It's gonna be my say, and then it does not go well.
It's like humans, if you come here, I'm gonna retaliate.
It does not go well,
but don't do it.
And he has been the leader of the X-Men several times,
a couple of times,
and for periods of time, he's been like the head of the school. He filled in for Charles, and like his and Charles's relationships, both in the comics and the movies, was captured really well with Ian McKellen and Patrick Stewart, who were both brilliant in their roles. So that worked really well on the screen. As many problems as I have with the Bryan Singer X-Men movies, and I have a whole lot. That's a whole other episode. The Magneto was never my issue with those movies.
That's
like,
true.
They were
really good.
Yeah.
Fassbender's great. And Ian McKellen's great, and so like super well portrayed on screen, really good adaptation. So I think there's like a lot of heart to it. You're never quite sure what he's going to do. At the end of the day, it's not unusual for him to do the right thing or do the merciful thing because he often does that sort of thing. Yeah. He's very human, three-dimensional sort of character. He would
have hated that you said that.
What?
He would hate it that you said it.
You called him a human.
Oh wow. Well. Yeah, he would correct me, wouldn't he?
He would.
But like, and it does, of course, it bears mentioning that he's not always been so complex. Most of this came about in the Claremont era, starting in the early 70s. But like, and if you read the first volume of the old recollected Stan and Jack stuff from 1963, he's pretty mustache twirly. But
he's very much like mutants will inherit the earth.
Yeah, but like even in that, as two-dimensional ish as he is in that, he has relative substance for the time. Because even at the time, he's like still kind of spouting the same stuff. Like, I've seen horrors like you wouldn't believe. They will never let us have peace. So I'm gonna take over the world so they don't exterminate us. Like that kind of thing. So I don't know. I think Magneto's real great. He's a super duper good villain who is not entirely unlike Loki. He's often been like a hero or an anti-hero, and you're never quite sure where he's going to land, like, morally. But at the end of the day, he is the arch nemesis, arch rival of the X-Men.
He's definitely a glass half empty type.
That's what I wanted to say. Very good call.
Yeah.
Solid pick.
Yeah,
right.
Were you reading it when all the Zoran stuff was happening and he was revealed himself?
Not at the time. I did go back and I did go back and read the Grant Morrison X-Men from the early 2000s. Which was called
New X-Men.
New X-Men, thank you.
Joss Whedon's was astonishing.
Right.
Like, Morrison's is new.
Was New X-Men. And I liked it at the beginning. I can see why people talk about it. And Grant Morrison is a strong writer. Yeah. Obviously, some of his stuff is really great, and some of his stuff is not as good. Yeah. But, like, he's a really strong writer with a strong voice, and it's interesting to see him, like, do a weird X-Men story.
And it's feels a weird different. X-Men story.
But, like, some good stuff came out of it, but at the end of the day, it wasn't my favorite thing, Zoran. And then what it came at the end of that, I'm like, that's an anticlimax. Like, it felt kind of stupid to me. Yeah. But, you know, he created a whole bunch of new characters, though, which is cool, because a lot of, some of his characters have continued. Yeah. Yeah, not all of them. But
not all, well, that's kind of like the point of the X-Men, though. Like, they're disposable.
Yeah, how did you feel about Zoran? Were you reading it at that point? They are, a little bit.
Morph! This one's for you, Morph! But, like, I mean, I never read a lot of X-Men. Yeah. Like, I still don't. Like,
fair enough.
There are definitely some X-Men stories I'm reading. Like, X-Men Red, I'm still reading it.
Yeah, it's real good.
It's real good. Mm. I read Blue for a long while.
In which Magneto
was a good guy.
He's like the good guy benefactor of the team.
Oh, yeah.
But then that does not end well.
Not well. It never does. It never does.
Oh, man. Of all the Charlie Browns, Magneto, you're the Charlie Browniest.
I'm glad you brought that up, because Magneto is very much kind of like Charlie Brown with that football. Sometimes you think, like, he's not gonna go for the football, but he always goes for the football. Man. He's always gonna go for, like, a better future for mutant kind.
He wants to.
And if that means, like, human genocide, then, like,
that's what's gonna have to happen.
Eggs and omelets. That's just what's gonna have to happen.
Yeah.
So he's always going to go for that football. Yeah.
Well, because when I said I'm wearing the,
the football being like the
world domination.
The survival of the mutant race.
Right. So I'm wearing my Magneto made some valid point shirt because like it's a spin-off joke of the Grant Morrison X-Men where Quentin Quire, which was a new character at that time, was he graffitied around the Xavier School like Magneto was right. Magneto was right because he thought he was being all edgy. So I don't think it's fair to say Magneto was right. So and J. Miles agree with I agree with them. So they made this shirt because he wasn't right, but he made some valid points, which is to say that he's right about the evil above mankind, and that we the xenophobia that is built into our society and our psyche, our collective psyche. Sure. We are always susceptible to being riled up about the evils of the other. And like, these people are not like you. We must exterminate them or contain them or keep them out of our communities, or they are the reason of all the things are wrong in your life. And like, we're seeing a lot of that in 2018. Sure. We've seen a lot of that for the last 2 years, but we've seen a lot of that for all of the thousands of years of human society. Sure. It's particularly prevalent right now in America. But so it's just such a relevant and powerful thing that Magneto's just like, no, Charles, like, you are foolish. Like, it's a beautiful dream, buddy, but that you are foolish because they will always hate us. Yeah. And he's right. He's right.
So do you think that like comes down to what makes the hero or the villain is you're like, these are challenges we face as society, as a culture, as people, as humanity, and I have a positive outlook on it or I have a negative outlook on it?
Not necessarily.
Sure. Well, I mean, it's definitely, an argument could certainly be made. Like, but it kind of falls apart because a lot of villains are focused singularly on like one person. Yeah, like they don't focus on like the
Reverse Flash,
like Reverse Flash.
Like, I mean,
or like Lex Luthor. He's so singularly focused on like a single person.
All about Batman.
Yeah,
he's
only about he like loves Batman so much.
That's true, but he does stuff for his own reasons too.
But I think, like, I think part of what I'm reading into your question is, like, does it matter, like, the philosophy of the villain or the, like...
Right, because, I mean, Xavier knows that people hate mutants.
Well, and I think with Magneto, it matters a great deal to me, and it's a big part of why I love Magneto. But, like, I like the Joker, too, but the Joker's philosophy is not important to me. Or whatever. What drives him is not important to me. So, like, sometimes I can like a 1 or 2 dimensional villain, or a villain that doesn't have as much philosophical substance.
It's like Granny Goodness.
Right, exactly. But she's a great villain, but what drives her is not important to me.
Right.
But with Magneto, that's important to why I like Magneto.
I'm with you 100% on that entire thing.
Yeah, so it depends.
So can I lead into a question I wanted to ask?
Yes, please do.
Man, do it.
I wanted to talk about the hero to villain transition.
Ooh, yeah.
So it is a line from The Dark Knight.
Oh yeah.
Basically like the line about living long enough to see yourself become the villain, which has certain implications in relation to the movie.
I feel like that's a paraphrase of a previous quote, though, right?
I thought so too.
Yeah,
I like the way Aaron Eckhart said it.
Yeah.
But so I wanted to talk about that because there are several.
There are some very interesting like hero to villain conversions,
and
that are really compelling.
And there, I feel like I'm going to leave this question open to interpretation. You can take it a lot of ways, like maybe ones that you like, maybe ones that you hate it, like I hate that they did this to the character, or maybe ones that like bothered you, or even ones that you felt like I don't know. Again, this was one of my questions was, well, what is a villain? Because we've talked before about you can be an antagonist but not necessarily the bad guy. Because I was looking through some mentally comics and thinking like, besides some of the big 2 villains, like what else is there? I was trying to think like, so who's the villain in the East of West?
Oh.
I was like
the Apocalypse.
There's so many.
Right,
There are so many villains in that book.
But you got the 4 Horsemen,
and
the
like
Horsemen.
the Chosen, the
Beast, and idea of that. But
there are so many different villains.
Right, but you can look at that and like, I mean, it's kind of like about villain. Like it's like nobody is really great in it.
That's
Or, like,
there are a lot of comics in which like the characters themselves aren't particularly heroic or villainous, just like
Right.
their
I was
actions,
thinking of like Fables. I was like, who's the villain in Fable? Like for a long time, it's
like
I don't
Evil
wanna
Empire
know.
or whatever.
Well,
I haven't got there yet.
okay. Well, then never mind because stuff gets complicated.
The
That's the thing.
adversary.
Sometimes stuff gets
Whoever
complicated.
that is, I don't wanna know
It
yet.
gets complicated.
Yeah.
So, I could just say,
Don't do
and
it.
I want to.
People have talked about it openly before in front of me, and I've had to I've been lucky. I've been lucky not to.
Man, the adversary is so good.
Yeah.
So stuff like that made me kind of think about the idea of, there are certain people that I would say, like, I just don't like Hank Pym. Like,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's definitely not like a great guy.
Right. Would you call him a villain?
I mean,
Not usually, but sometimes.
Right. So
not
is that,
often, but sometimes.
I mean, so
There have been a couple of villainous turns.
Then can you say that he's a villain, or can you say like, sometimes
No.
he's a jerk?
it's kind of like with the Hulk. Like, can you call the Hulk a villain?
No,
I
but
don't think
he's
so.
he does bad things, but he's not in control as much. It's not that
There's a difference.
Right. So that's why I thought this was an interesting.
He's a monster. The Hulk's a monster, but he's a sympathetic monster.
Right.
Sure.
That we
Like
want.
Frankenstein's monster.
Yes.
Sure.
Is he the villain?
I mean, he came out of a monster genre.
He certainly got villainous right quick.
No. Frankenstein's monster is like the sympathetic figure in the
He
story.
kills a child and then
But
frames a woman for
I mean, yeah, but
and then kills his wife.
I think that.
I mean, he doesn't kill that nice family that ran from him.
Yeah, I think he does. I don't blame him for his. He's a product of his creator.
That's also true.
My wife pointed out something to me the other day. She saw something that said, like being smart or like intelligence, whatever, is knowing that Frankenstein is not the monster.
Yeah.
Right.
But wisdom is knowing Frankenstein is the monster.
Right. He is. Hey, see, that's really clever. Good job.
That's pretty good.
So what's your question?
So my question is, tell me your thought. Like, what are some of your
villainous turns?
I don't want to say necessarily say favorite, but maybe most
Like
notable
notable.
or discussion worthy hero to villain transitions.
Who would
whether it was a long term
Right.
or it just sort of happened.
or just sort of, or not necessarily because it happened. Because some of them, they go and they go back. Like we
Yeah.
could talk about Wanda.
Oh yeah. Well, they started
Who
as
do you want?
villains.
Who do you want to kick this off?
I
got
go
one.
for it.
There
Hal
have a lot of them.
Jordan.
Oh.
Hey,
Freaking Jordan.
He became a big
he
villain.
became
Boy, he just destroyed some
he really
folks, didn't he?
He really, and you really have to delve into the Hal Jordan / parallax of it all. You really have to go into like Return of Superman, wherein Mongol like destroys coast city in order to make like a giant like engine.
Mongol with a U, right?
Mongol with a U. Well, like yeah, the warlord from the Superman villain who's like the warlord of
like Mongol, right?
Warlord of War World. So Mongol destroys Coast City to build like a giant engine, and obviously they stop him and they save the day or whatever. But Hal is real broken up about the fact that his city is gone, like everyone he ever loved, just gone because this alien dude. Yellow alien dude came down and just said, I'm going to build an engine where this city is.
And then he loses it.
He straight up loses it, and he tries to use his ring to recreate Coast City. Like he reasons it out. It's like if I have the will, I can do anything with this ring. And he actually does succeed in like recreating like a skeleton of like a city. Then the Guardians come down and they say, no, you can't do this. That's not what these rings were made for. That's not what they're intended for. You can't change what happened. Your city is dead. That's super sad, although they don't actually say that because they're the emotionless Guardians at this point. Your city is dead. Move on. Be the Green Lantern that we chose you to be. And Hal takes a pause for a moment. He doesn't actually do this, but I'm in between the panels. He like takes a pause and says a monumental screw that to all of that, and decides to go on a rampage. He said
like a multiverse
spanning rampage. He starts off with killing a majority of the Green Lantern Corps and taking their rings, and then going to Oa to get all the power stored.
I'm taking it all.
He's like, I'm taking it all.
He's Corey Feldman in the water and Goonies.
Yeah, man.
I'm taking it back.
I'm taking it all back. Like he gets the rings from a bunch of Green Lantern members, and he's going to Oa, and he's gonna get all the power from the central battery, and he's gonna recreate his city and everyone he loves, or he's gonna die trying, or he's gonna kill a bunch of people. And
probably that last thing.
Like and the Guardians do everything they can to stop him. They release Sinestro from the central battery, and Hal kills him in like one-on-one combat. And then takes the energy, takes all of the energy from the Guardians, takes all of the energy from every Green Lantern everywhere, just takes it all. And he's like, I'm gonna remake the universe. And then he does that. He starts off the whole like 0 Hour Crisis event, starts calling himself Parallax. And just
that's when you know that he's lost.
Oh yeah,
it's like I have to have a new name.
It's like I can't.
I'm rebranding.
It's like I'm not Hal Jordan or Green Lantern anymore. I'm Parallax. Like
and you're
and I'm gonna fix everything. I'm gonna go back to the beginning of time, and I'm gonna make it so that all the tragedies of the world just didn't happen. And he tries to do that. And the superheroes have like a whole big crisis like event called 0 Hour because of it, and they manage to like stop him and kill him, and and that's like, and to me that was just like it, when I first read that, and for the longest time that was just the way it was. Like Hal Jordan just one day went friggin' insane and just decided to become like this big universe this big like multiverse threatening villain. And for a while there that was one of the starkest and most sudden like heroic to villainous turns that you had seen. And it was sort of like
he'd been the Green Lantern for like 40 years.
He'd been the Green Lantern for a good long while.
For a long time.
For a long time. I mean, there were a couple of moments where he's not like there were a couple of moments where he was like away from Earth for a while, and so another Green Lantern took his place. First it was Guy Gardner, then it was
Kyle Rayner.
Well, no, Kyle Rayner came after Hal Jordan went
crazy. See what I know.
Yeah. So, but John Stewart, it was I think it was Guy Gardner first, and then John Stewart, or could have been John Stewart first, and then Guy Gardner. Yeah. But of the two of them, I would have much rather preferred if John Stewart had stuck around and Guy Gardner had just gone away.
Well, I love John from the cartoons.
Yeah,
he was great.
And he was awesome, and his Green Lantern stories are some of the best. Yeah. They're really, really good. Anywho, but yeah, like for a long time, that was like a really like startling and sort of like cautionary tale because like it's sort of like a one bad day type thing. It's Joker's like one bad day sort of like hypothesis, but like writ large. Like Hal Jordan just had one really, really bad day, and just
flipped.
just really went the other. Just really.
Who wrote that?
Went to left field with that.
Do you know?
I couldn't tell you. It's an
When he turned.
It's an event called Emerald Twilight.
Okay.
It's an event. I can't remember.
And it was like in the mid to late 90s.
It was in the mid to late 90s. They were wanting to rebrand, and so they make Hal Jordan crazy, and they kill him, and then they give his ring to Kyle,
right?
And like Kyle has awesome
super
space
nice
adventures.
guy.
Yeah, Kyle's a super like I'm a '90s kid. Yeah.
Artist.
Yeah,
That's what I always liked about
it. I'm a '90s grungy artist fellow,
yeah.
And I'm gonna do this Green Lantern thing up, and it's gonna be unlike anything you ever saw, and it was for a little while. But yeah, Hal Jordan.
That's a big villain turn.
Becoming a Parallax. It's like, and it's one of the most it's definitely the starkest, one of the most starkest, and one of the most startling that I can think of.
Yeah, that's a big one.
Right.
For the dude to be like one of the biggest DC heroes for all those,
and then just like snap, just take like a massive left turn
in continuity. Too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, this wasn't like
Flashpoint.
well, and not even that until Rebirth, until Green Lantern Rebirth. I'm not talking about like the universe Rebirth. I'm talking about there's a
DC event.
There's
2 years ago.
I'm talking about there's.
It was a one shot.
No, it's a storyline. It's a
Green Lantern Rebirth.
Yeah, it's a legit storyline where Jeff Johns is just like no.
They keep using the same terminology.
It's whatever.
But
often. Like Jeff Johns decides
secret rebirths.
Well, before there was DC Rebirth, there was just Green
Rebirth,
Lantern Rebirth and then Flash Rebirth.
Right.
And in Green Lantern Rebirth, like Jeff Johns retcons all that away. He didn't actually go insane. He was possessed by an evil like space parasite.
Of course.
And that's why he became so insane.
That makes so much sense.
Sure.
Ryan, do you have one in mind?
Space parasite. Yeah. No, you go.
Okay, I'm going to be brief. It's not something I have a whole lot to say about, but one of the first person that came to mind is, and it didn't make him an out-and-out villain, but it's, the first thing that came to mind was that Cyclops killed Professor X.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, during the whole Phoenix of it all?
Yeah. Well, a while ago, but now, because, Professor's been dead all this time. Heck, Scott has been dead for a minute now too. Yeah. Spoilers on X-Men for the last 8 years. But I mean, look, I always liked Cyclops. He was never my favorite X-Man, but I have a big attachment to the OG5. I have a big attachment to the X-Men in general. They're my favorite group. Scott was never my favorite X-Man, but I mean, I had a lot of love for him.
He's a pillar of the team.
He was the leader a lot,
and he's kind of the Boy Scout.
Yeah, and I like him a lot, and I when I heard that happened, which wasn't that long ago, and I went and read the issue, and I was like, and I'm not here to have a debate about whether he was right to kill Professor X or not. All I know is that on an emotional level, for me, I was like, well, I guess I'm done with Scott. I'm done. Thanks. Yeah. Over.
I mean,
and
Xavier's done some pretty effed up stuff.
No, I know. You could argue that Xavier's the villain of the X-Men, which is an argument that I've made before. It's a fair argument, but what I'm saying is, it's just on a totally emotional level, I went like, oh, I don't like this person anymore.
Okay,
and he had occupied a pretty substantial place in my heart. And so after that, for a while, that Scott, like older Scott, the reason I'm kind of trying to differentiate is because then there was also a younger, like time jump Scott.
Oh yeah, who has like awesome space adventures with his dad.
With his dad for a minute, and he's been around the last 4 or 5 years, and he's real cool. He's the Scott I like.
He's real great.
He's real great. Although
this Scott I like.
Yeah, although he's going to go away now because we're doing this extermination thing, and the time jumped young X-Men are going to go away. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I've enjoyed young Scott, but old Scott, after he killed Xavier, he became I'm leading the rebel X-Men now. He became underground X-Men, and I was just like,
he became very Magneto-y. He became very Magneto-like.
Very Magneto, and so doing bad things for the right reasons, kind of thing. A very cynical and militaristic type of outlook, and we've got to be ready and all that kind of stuff. And I get it, but it wasn't what I wanted for that character. And that's a selfish thing for me to say. And this is also extremely ironic that I'm bringing any of this up, because I actually have an adult Cyclops, that version of the character Cyclops Resist shirt, because that's what he represented during that whole era of X-Men, and I love that shirt. And it's also a J. Miles Explain the X-Men shirt. You can get it on their TeePublic, maybe, I think it is, site. You can Google it. You'll find it. But so it's extra layers of irony on top of all of this. That as much as it kind of hurt my opinion of the character and my love for the character, but I still think he works as that symbol. The character still works. Maybe it just didn't. Maybe it even made him better. I think you could probably, somebody's out there arguing right now that it actually made Cyclops more interesting. But for me, I went, that's not the guy I love. What? And he didn't become a villain, so maybe it doesn't fit the category, but it was a villainous sort of action.
He's certainly turned a little bit towards the left. So, like,
he killed Professor Xavier.
Yeah. I mean, I think he was like all hopped up on Phoenix Force at the
I know. So anyway,
you can't really. I mean, you can blame him, and the world does, but also hopped up on Phoenix Force. So.
Yeah, right. Maybe that was a bad one.
Well, no, because I think I'm just looking at my notes. I'm like, these are terrible notes. It says like Hank Pym, Scarlet Witch, Hellboy, Lock and Key. Like I just like wrote random things down. But I also have Phoenix Force up near the top. So I think that is a little bit of a larger category, to talk about tonight in terms of a villain, because you want to talk Jean Grey?
Yeah. But I mean, the Phoenix Force is an alien entity that inhabits her.
Right. So, but
Jean Grey is another really good, like hero to villain turn.
X-Men have a lot of that. Hank McCoy, the Beast, is the villain of Age of Apocalypse, which is a thing that X-Men keep going back to, like this dark future where Beast is a villain.
Dark Beast.
Actually,
Dark Beast is an actual character.
Yeah, but I mean, he's like and you already brought up Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, which were originally villains and in the X-Men, and they were in the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants,
right?
And they become heroes,
right? But then you get what Mephisto.
Oh yeah, well, all that,
and Wanda's one bad day.
Yeah, I mean it messed up the Marvel Universe something fierce.
It certainly did.
Yeah. Would you say that was a villainous?
No more mutants.
I mean,
kinda.
Sure.
I mean, that was wiping.
That was certainly a villainous action.
90% of. 95%.
That was like one of the things she did when she was all like crazy. Like she kills a lot of the Avengers. Yeah. She like does the No More Mutants thing. She does a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That for me, I think that's why she was on my list. Is like that's again like you kind of go, well, I can see that made her snap.
Yeah. Sure.
That was a snap, but that doesn't make it like.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like that.
Joker seems to be right about Marvel characters.
Marvel characters have a bad day, and then they kill.
Not all of them.
No, but way more than the DC side. It didn't work with Batman. Didn't work with Professor Gordon.
Worked for Hal Jordan.
Fair.
Yeah.
So that's what I would say.
All Joker had to do was just destroy a city. There you go.
So can I just throw a couple random things out here? Not like I feel like we're kind of
rapid fire.
We all had like a good question that we discussed.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to just kind of throw out some things of mine. One was when we're talking about who's the bad guy, like who would you say is the villain in Wicked and Divine?
A donkey.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Almost certainly. Yes.
Almost certain. Well,
well, we haven't wrapped yet. We're getting there though.
Right, but you kind of.
But Ananke, I think, is the villain. Yeah. I mean, there are some other.
She's also high on my list of villains that I like.
I mean, I liked her at the beginning of the book,
well,
but we don't want to have any spoilers in this for The Wicked and the Divine by Kieran Gillen, Jamie McKelvey, and Matt Wilson, which is a phenomenal book that you should all be reading and is going to wrap up in the next 6 months.
To be fair, she did look pretty villainous when I first saw her. I'm just like, that old lady is almost certainly going to be the villain.
But then
I was right.
But yeah, and then she ended up being like worse than I thought she was.
Yeah, right. But then also, I mean, Bast isn't really great.
Oh, there are some real bad people in that book.
I mean,
Wodan's not good.
No,
there's some
stuff like that. So I kind of wrote that. I have Birthright is something I get. So this is kind of spoilery a bit, not too much because it's like a kind of a reveal in the first issue, I believe. Okay. So it's kind of
is almost It's like at the end of the first issue.
At the end of the first, the premise of it is there's a boy who goes missing. He ends up in this fantasy kingdom, comes back years and years later. Or not years and years later, like a relatively short time later, but he's spent years in this kingdom.
It's been like 2 years. It's been like 2 years since he disappeared, but when he comes back, he's an
adult.
He's like 35
warrior, and he paints this picture of that he was like the chosen one in this fantasy kingdom.
Yeah.
And it turns out that he's really actually kind of semi-inhabited, like under like
by the evil king,
by the evil like that
by the evil like Sauron,
like Sauron. Yeah, it's like basically like if Sauron took. Frodo,
or if Sauron, if Sauron took like Aragorn, if Aragorn led the final charge against Sauron or whatever,
and he's our main character, and you kind of
became possessed.
You root for him, and he's going through and taking out like good guys that he is saying are the bad guys, and he's the protagonist of this story
/ antagonist.
But I mean, it's not his will. Like he's
his will has been corrupted.
Yeah, exactly. He's under the spell.
Still, you don't. I mean, you don't like the stuff he's doing.
Is he the bad guy?
Well, it's a good question. It's a well-written book. It's not a black or white issue, which is part of why it sells so well and does. Josh Williamson is a good writer,
right?
Yeah, it's an interesting story for sure. You get a hook.
We talked about Hellboy a bit before the show started, but
who is maybe the villain, or one of the villains because his fate.
He's
fated to destroy the world.
Sure, he's fated to, but I think Hellboy's just like, whatever.
He's for sure not
gonna do it. Yeah. I have there is no tension for me whatsoever in reading Hellboy, wondering whether he is going to complete his fate or not.
Sure,
he's just going to be like, it comes down to it, and he's going to be like, nope, and that's it. But I do like the villains in Hellboy. I like Rasputin.
Yeah,
I
Rasputin's
like you've got your Nazi heads in jars and gorillas, and
I kind of miss the Nazi heads in jars. You don't see that too much anymore.
Frogs and lots of just like sorcerers and
lots of mad sorcerers, lots of like gods,
and you've got the whatever one
the
main agent of hell who's like parting words to him are basically, well, call me.
Yeah.
If you ever want to,
if you ever want
to do the whole into the world,
if you ever want to, I'm here for you, man.
Or the witch Hecate,
or in her Iron Maiden kind of, really good villains,
really good,
like
the Blood Queen.
Just creepy but great stuff.
The Baba Yaga,
Baba Yaga,
so good.
Oh yeah.
Kostrad the Devil.
Lock and Key, Dodge.
So villainous.
So villainous.
Such a good villain.
Such a good villain. And that's the thing is I hesitated to put Dodge was almost my
your arch enemy.
My favorite villain.
Yeah.
Not my arch enemy.
Well, he's like the arch enemy
of the family.
You don't know.
I know.
No, you don't, Patty. You refuse to read it. I'm forever going to be like, no, Patty, you don't get to talk about Lock and Key.
I know about Lock and Key.
You don't get to talk about Lock and Key.
Patty has not read Lock and Key.
But I've read but I know Lock and Key.
But Dodge is such a well done villain. I don't want to say good villain. I hesitate to say it's my favorite villain because Dodge is
he's
in
really
no way redeemable.
Villainous. Yeah.
There's no he's got this lovable aspect, the Joker. As much as
he is straight up demonic.
Hate the Joker, you're kind of like, oh, he's kind of funny in certain ways that or the Cesar Romero version of him's got that charm. No, there's nothing. There's nothing redeemable about him.
He's like straight up demonic.
Yeah,
really. Well, I'm looking at one all night. The Watchmen over there.
Yeah.
That's a classic, who is the villain, and then of course his husband dies at the end. But
then is it? That's kind of his point. It's like, am I the villain?
It's like, I destroyed 5 cities, but I saved a world.
He's doing it to save humanity.
It's like, am I the villain? I would say yes.
I mean, he's definitely the villain.
Yes.
Yeah, 100%.
There's a T-shirt though that says, actually, Ozymandias
had some valid points.
He had some valid points, but he is not right. It's similar to Magneto situation.
Yeah, sure. And then I had Autumn Lands.
Oh yeah,
I haven't
with the guy.
Yeah. It's like a future.
Where animals
there's anthropomorphic animals, and there was used to be magic, but there is a lot of magic, but it's fading. And they bring this hero, who's a human, and they're like, this is a weird animal kind of thing, and he comes from a clearly technological past. But there's a jerk of an owl in it that is the reason stuff goes wrong a lot of the time, but it's the most arrogant, clearly the cause of problems but won't admit it and blames everyone else, and that's my least favorite kind of villain, because the kind that are smug and unwilling to see their own faults and blame other people for things. It's almost worse than the ones who are I've nuked a city, because you're on that scale I kind of can't even comprehend it, but you're just a jerk. So that was on my list too. And then I just wrote Sandman because there's so many good villains.
There's so many good villains. Well, there's so many good characters and villains in the way Neil Gaiman writes. Very few of them could be considered out-and-out villains.
And then there's the whole, again, villain or antagonist. There's a whole plot arc with the Furies, and it's kind of they're doing something out of this righteous sort of justice, but at the same time they're the antagonists of Sandman.
Well, I always find with the Furies, I always thought of them as they're what is it? They're like a natural force.
They're a force.
They're not villains or antagonists in any shape or form. They're just they've been summoned to do a job, and they're going to do that job. It doesn't matter what's going to happen. They're just going to do that job.
There's a lot of that in the book. Stay tuned for more Sandman discussion in a few weeks. So we're going to do a whole Sandman retrospective.
It's going to be fun.
2 episodes or 3 episodes from now. So hopefully we can get it out before the end of October. It might be beginning of November-ish, but so stay tuned for that.
So to wrap up, final villainous thoughts. Were there any villains that you wanted to talk about but didn't I don't want to let's not actually talk about them. Let's just throw them out there.
No, the only thing I was going to say was it was funny when you were mentioning Hal Jordan, et cetera, was there was one villain that I know not a lot about, and I have no real interest in, and it's Sinestro. I kind of Sinestro has no.
Sinestro is a fun guy. Like,
okay, because I'm just kind of like, I don't really have any desire to learn more about Sinestro.
I don't really have the time to like delve into it like right now, but Sinestro is a fascinating character. Yeah.
And one villain that I like, I don't know why, I have an inordinate fondness for, and I cannot figure out why, is Solomon Grundy.
Oh, he's a lot of fun.
I know, but I don't know why. Like, why?
Because he's just cool. Because he's like, the idea of him is cool.
Do you have any do you have any villains that like don't really, like, to wrap this up, any villains that don't really
click?
Like, you're just
Is
like,
Bizarro a villain?
Sure.
I can't stand Bizarro, so
just you can say that.
Is it because of his Cookie Monster type way of talking?
I just can't stand him, man. He's so dumb. I hate the whole concept. The whole conceit of it is real dumb. I hate it. I can't deal with it.
A villainous team I wanted to talk about that I didn't get a chance to is the Four from Planetary, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, which I still have not read.
Yeah, well, you will, and then you'll find out why I like the Four so much.
I did want to say. One of my favorite things in the Brubaker Sean Phillips books is their villains or antagonists are often like a little bit complex, or like often their protagonists are also cursed, or like Fatale is my favorite of their books, and the main Josephine,
like a villainous protagonist.
She's kind of a villain, but she's not the villain of the book, but she is villainous, and I love that. Like, that's one of my favorite horror books.
I did not.
I did want to ask one more question, and it's just a one-word answer.
Okay,
it's a one-word answer.
All right.
What villain, in your opinion, we're going to get one from each of us, needs a break? Like, put him away for a while, put him in the cupboard and lock the cupboard for like 10 years, or because needs a break, overexposed, too much.
One word.
Yes,
one word.
Joker for me.
Okay.
Love him, but he needs to go away for like a while.
Darkseid.
Yeah, I can see that.
I find Darkseid to be a little bit overexposed.
Yeah, a little bit.
You know what? I was going to say Joker.
Yeah?
So as much as I like that archetype, there's other Batman villains.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of same thing of like, you're shaking the exclamation points over your book. You're shaking the salt over your dinner. Like, eventually, you
need to move on.
The reason why Joker works...
And that's good.
It has to be a good... Oh, yeah, it was one line.
It's okay.
One word. So.
Yeah. No. So we've got two Jokers and a Darkseid.
Yeah.
DC, you need to freshen up a little bit.
Freshen your villains up. You got good villains, but sometimes you need to like give other. You have a large.
Yeah.
You have a large like universe of villains. I feel like you need to give them a chance. Like, give the Mr. Freezes and the Granny Goodnesses a chance, man.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. A little Mr. Freeze story.
A little Mr. Freeze story.
Yeah,
like, remember that story where he like froze those two policemen and then like broke them into like little chunks? That was fun, right? Remember that?
It doesn't always have to be the arch villain. Give them all a break.
Sometimes they just be like,
I would love to see Marvel or DC Comics, or both of them, be like, this is the year. Do I have something on?
There was a mosquito on here.
This is the year where we're not going to use any of our arch villains for 1 year.
Let's get Crazy Quilt in there.
January to December, none of the arch villains. Everybody else is fair game.
That is a great idea.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the outro?
Sure, I'll do the outro.
Death.
So we didn't do proper notes for tonight, so I'm gonna try to do it from memory, but I think I can.
You can do it.
I think I can do it. We've done a lot of episodes, so all right.
Let's give Solomon Grundy his own book.
Give Solomon. I'd read a Solomon Grundy book.
I did read.
He's an interesting character. He's an interesting villain. Yeah. All right. Well, we're not going to hear. Well, we were here to talk about Solomon Grundy, but the time is.
We didn't even talk about Swamp Thing.
Time has passed.
Yeah, we could never hope to encapsulate all of our thoughts about villainy in one episode.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm fully interrupting this right now.
Okay.
Didn't even talk about Saga.
The will is a villainous turn.
Exactly.
That's a sad turn.
I was gonna say I don't want to talk too much about it because it's still a little raw.
Because he was like Han Solo for a second there.
Yeah, he was real cool for a minute. Now he's not cool anymore.
Now he's not cool.
Okay, moving on.
That's my final thought.
I'm sure we have a variety of lovely shop events here in October, but I haven't written them down tonight. So check out the Empire's Comics Vault Facebook page. Go to the events tab. Honestly, that's always your best bet. And I do know we're going to have there will be like a costume contest near the end of the month. There's going to be some giveaway October comics near the end of the month. So keep an eye out for that on all Empire's social media pages.
Book Club is Animosity.
Book Club's Animosity. We're definitely not going to get this out before that happens next Thursday. But please read Animosity by Marguerite Bennett and Raphael De La Torre because it's brilliant and it's one of my favorite ongoing series that is also a horror book and it's very spoopy. So good October read. You can always find all of our episodes at crackingthevaultpodcast.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and that's about it, I guess. You can find us on.
There's other stuff.
You can find us on Radio Public, Player FM. You can find us on iVoox, and most importantly, or maybe most helpfully for most of you, or for a lot of you anyway. Boy, I'm butchering this. iTunes. Please give us a rating on iTunes if you like the show, and you can email us at crackingthevaultpodcast@gmail.com. I know we have a phone number, but I can't remember what it is right now, so I'm not too worried about it. Nobody calls anyway. Patty, thanks for leading the episode tonight.
You're welcome. Thank you for being a wonderful co-host.
Yeah, I'm really glad that we got to air your thoughts about Zoom and Thawne.
Yeah, me too.
And I think villains are absolutely fascinating. You can't have a hero without villains.
Can't have a hero without villains.
I'm glad we got to have this discussion. It probably should be like the first of several villain discussions.
You can have a hero that saves people from natural disasters. I wouldn't call it a tidal wave of villains.
Why are you like this? All right.
My parents have been asking that.
I hope everybody's having a wonderful October, and thank you for joining us as always. Farewell, and see you soon, we hope. And in the words of the great Leonard Cohen, we will leave you with this.
There's a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in.
Cheers, everybody.
Ladies and gentlemen, that's a wrap for another episode of Empire's Comics Presents Cracking the Vault. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. If you like our show, we would be grateful if you would consider sharing it with a friend or giving us a rating or a review on iTunes, which really does help new people find us. And of course, if you live outside of Sacramento, please come by and say hello the next time you're in the area. And if you're a local, I, the Pugs, and the rest of the Empire's Comics family will no doubt see you soon.
Look, I have to do this. We did an entire freaking episode about villains in comics, and we didn't talk about Victor Von Doom. Okay, so listen, I have to just give a shout. I've got to throw a bone to Dr. Doom, the one and only. He could arguably have been my answer for the first question about favorite villains, because he's one of my favorites. He could arguably have been my answer for the second round of chatter about arch nemesis, because he's the arch rival of the Fantastic Four, and Reed Richards specifically, but the whole Fantastic Four. And I could have talked about him when we were sort of bandying about ideas about complex villains, because he's got a sort of a really messed up and weird tragic backstory, and he's been really fleshed out over the years, and he's very villainous, but he's also like the godfather to Valeria and Franklin, I think. He's an interesting character. He's one of those guys who, he recently was an infamous Iron Man, when Tony Stark was gone for a bit. Dr. Doom as Iron Man flying around. So I think it's one of these, I've always really loved Dr. Doom. I've always loved the design, the metal like suit of armor with the green cape and the hood, and it's just like he's always speaking in these extremely dramatic declarations, and he's just a super he is one of his superpowers is his ego, But the thing is he can totally back it up, because he's a magician, like a sorcerer, who is also like this genius tech wizard who's good, almost as good as Reed Richards, right? Like he was not quite as good as Reed, but at the inventing and the engineering and the sciencing, but like almost, right? And he is the king, the undisputed monarch of his own country, Latveria. And one of my favorite things about that is that he treats his subjects well, as long as they don't speak out against Dr. Doom, right? Of course, so there's always going to be that horrible fascistic, denial of human rights and freedoms on some pretty basic levels. But also, as long as you don't stir up anything, as long as you're a good citizen of Latveria, that's like one of the best places to live in the world. Like, he will take care of his citizens. The quality of life is really high there, as it's been portrayed in my favorite Dr. Doom stories. I'm sure there's some people out there, you're like, I've read this other Dr. Doom story where Latveria is a terrible place to live. And certainly it is, too, if you want to start, a rebellion or a revolution or a smear campaign on Doom, you're not going to have a good time, okay? But he's just fascinating character, and he's hit Doom and Doombots and different Doom Doom-related people have been involved in a lot of my favorite moments in Marvel history. I will definitely recommend Doctor Strange, Doctor Doom, Triumph and Torment, which is by Mike Mignola, and I don't remember who wrote it. It was in the 80s before Mignola started Hellboy, but I don't remember who actually wrote it. But there is a current collection of it, Triumph and Torment. It's wonderful, very interesting. Actually, there's a couple of stories, pretty short stories, because there's actually a second story to pad out the trade paperback, because they needed something else to make it worth the, whatever it is that they're charging for it, $16, whatever. But it's a brilliant story from the 80s where Doctor Strange and Doctor Doom team up to go fight Mephisto in hell, and they're trying to like free the soul of Doctor Doom's mother, and she was this Romany witch woman who is where he kind of gets his magic side of him, and she had she made a bad deal, and her soul is with Mephisto. So like every year on this one particular day, like when the veil is thinnest between our worlds, I kind of like that, one of those kinds of things, he gets to go try to win her soul back. And he's failed over and over again. So he enlists the aid of Doctor Strange, and that's what this book is, and it's great, super great. So check that out, and you get a real, I don't know. He was an awesome X-Men villain. I mean, he's been a great Avengers villain. He's been an Iron Man villain. He's just been he is one of the absolutely biggest, best, and most popular Marvel villains. He's been done very, very poorly on film. Twice, well, 3 times, but in 2 different incarnations, or I guess 3 incarnations if we're counting the Roger Corman movie from the 90s that never actually made it to the theaters. It's unfortunate. I don't think they've ever got him right. So hopefully now that Fox Studios has been bought by Disney Marvel, they can introduce him in the MCU, and we can get a good Doctor Doom finally, please. An extra shout out to my brother Joe, who super duper loves MF Doom, the rapper, who's his sort of persona is all about Doctor Doom, and he's got like a Doctor Doom mask, kind of like a custom made Doctor Doom mask that he raps in and stuff, and he's on his album covers and whatnot. So like, Joe loves MF Doom. We went to see MF Doom one time at this festival in San Francisco, and he didn't show. So I don't know what that's about, but he didn't show up. It was that, but everybody else showed up. Like, I don't know, but yeah. So we left out one of the biggies, and one of the most interesting and indelible and popular and best designed villains who I never tire of. I will never get tired of Doctor Doom. I love him in Squirrel Girl. I love him. Of course I do. I love him in every incarnation basically that I've seen him in except for the films. And whatever's Doctor Doom's up to, I'm interested. So Victor Von Doom, Prost.